What's up, chat? And we are back. In this lesson, we are going to be covering measurement and geometry portion of the SOL review. And we're going to be looking at angles and Pythagorean theorem. All right, so angle relationships and Pythagorean theorem. So let's get to it. All right, so adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are angles that are side by side, and they share a common vertex and a common side. Okay, so these are these are adjacent because they are side by side. Okay, so angle 5. Get a different color here. So angle 5 and angle 6 are adjacent angles. Okay. Now, it tells us if angle 5 is 85 degrees and angle ABC, so from ABC, so this entire angle is 115. Okay, so we'll say the whole thing is 115. Okay. We need to know what angle 6 is, okay? And so if I know the whole and I know this part of it, then in order to find the other angle, I just got to subtract it, all right? So you go ahead and do that now. 115 minus 85 and get your answer. All right, when I get my answer, I end up with 30, okay? So again, 115 minus 85, it gives me 30, and so 30 plus 85, again, no, that's correct. All right, the next type of angles I want to talk about is vertical angles. Okay, vertical angles are angles that are, actually, let's go back here. These are kind of side by side. Okay, you might want to remember that. Vertical angles are angles that are across from each other. Okay, so they are across, they are opposite, okay? And so I have, in these two intersecting lines, I have two set of vertical angles. Angles 1 and 3 are vertical, and then angle 1 and 3 are a set of vertical angles, and then also angle 2 and angle 4 are a different set of vertical angles, okay? So those are my sets of vertical angles, all right? Okay, so we got angle 2 and angle 4 are vertical angles, okay? Actually, I'm gonna go angle 1 and angle 3 here. It doesn't matter. We could put angle 2 and angle 4. Doing angle 1 and angle 3, only because that's what the problem talks about, all right? So angle 1 is 50 degrees, okay? And then it tells me that angle 3 is 4x plus 6, okay? So angle 1 is 50, and then that is 4x plus 6. And the relationship between vertical angles is that they are equal to each other, okay? So vertical angles are equal. Okay, so they are equal to each other. All right, so that means angle 1 is equal to angle 3. All right, so with that, we can, if we want to figure out what does the x equal, what is the value of x, okay, what I got to do is I just got to set these equal to each other. So 50 equals 4x plus 6. Okay, and I want you to pause this and then go ahead and see if you can solve this on your own by solving for the variable. All right, and so again, to solve this, I'm getting rid of the minus 6. That's going to give me 44 equals 4x, and then I got to divide by 4, and that's going to give me 11 equals x. All right, so x equals 11 here. All right, next set is complementary angles, okay? And so complementary angles are angles that add up to equal 90, okay? So they add up to equal 90. So here, I know that these add up to equal 90 because there is a box that shows me the right angle. Okay, so angle 7 and angle 8 are complementary. Okay, so if I know that angle 7 is 15 degrees and I'm looking for angle 8, right? And again, I know because these are complementary angles, I know that the entire angle equals 90. So you guys know what to do. 90 minus 15, and that is going to give me angle 8. So go ahead and do that on your own. All right, so 90 minus 15, that is going to give me 65 degrees. So I know that this angle is 65. All right, and then last but not least, supplementary angles. Okay, supplementary angles, they add up to equal 180. Okay, again, these are just ways to remember, right? Complementary, draw a line down, that's 90. Supplementary, make that S into an 8, 180. Okay, just some ways to remember that. All right, and so angle 9 and angle 10 here are supplementary, right? We know they are supplementary angles because when you have the two angles, they form a straight line. Okay, so that's how I know. All right, and I also know that the angles, when it's a straight line, it adds up to equal 180. Okay, so again, I know from here to here, that is going to equal 180. All right, now it says if the angle 9 is 50 degrees and angle 10 is 4x plus 6, okay, how could I find the value of x? Okay, well, again, I know this angle plus this angle equals 180. So I can just do that. So I can say 50 plus 4x plus 6 equals 180. Okay, and once I get here, I want to go ahead and combine these like terms. I'm going to put those, that 50 and that 6 together. So I got 4x plus 56 equals 180. Okay, and then I just need to solve for that variable. You can solve it just like we did earlier. All right, do the inverse operation and solve for that. So, hey, I want you to go ahead and do that on your own now. All right, so we do 56, or subtract 56 on both sides. That's going to cancel, leaving me with 4x equals 124. And then I'm going to do divide each side by 4. And that's going to give me x equals 31. Yeah, 31. If I wanted to, I could go back and check this. So I could, plug x in for, I could tell Desmos 4x plus 6 and then tell it x equals 31. And then I can figure out, okay, what does that equal? Well, 4 times 31 is going to give me 124. 124 plus 6 is going to give me 130, okay? And so 50 plus 130, that gives me 180. So I know that that is the correct answer. All right, a lot of mental math there, but all right. So that is it for angle relationships. Okay. So again, adjacent angles are side by side. Vertical angles are across from each other. Complementary add up to make a right angle. They add up to equal 90. And supplementary, they add up to make a straight line. Together, they add up to equal 180. All right. Now, lastly, on the next page, we are talking about Pythagorean theorem, okay? So Pythagorean theorem is a squared plus b squared equals c squared, all right? A squared plus b squared equals c squared. And you're going to have to, actually, Pythagorean theorem is on your formula sheet, okay? So make sure when you are in this, particularly, in this is going to be something I emphasize over the next couple of days, is make sure you use your formula sheet. It's in the exhibits window in TestNav, all right? So a squared plus b squared equals c squared, all right? A and b are both of the legs, and then c are the legs, and then c is the hypotenuse, which is always is always across from the right angle. Okay, so the hypotenuse is always across, and actually that's what C must always be located across from the right angle. Okay, so, all right, so really we just, we identify and we know that A and B is what make the right angle. So A and B always form the right angle, and then C is across from the right angle. All right, so in this one, all right, I gotta find a missing side. I see that it's a right angle, so I'm gonna start with Pythagorean theorem. Okay, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Then I just gotta know where each of them goes, right? So the legs make the right angle, so that's A and B. So we're gonna do x squared plus 6 squared equals, and then I know this is C because it's across, 16 squared. Okay? And so once you get here, all right, you are going to square each of them. Well, x squared, I don't know what x is, all right? 6 squared is gonna give me 36. And then 16 squared, okay? I've already done this. You should, if you're doing this on your own, be using your calculator. 16 squared is gonna give you 256. All right. And now, I'm going to solve this just like I've been solving, right? The solving a multi-step equation. I'm gonna subtract the 36 from both sides. That's gonna cancel, leaving me with x squared equals 220, okay? And so once I get 220 here, now I have to do the inverse operation to get rid of the squared. Well, the opposite or the inverse of squared is to do the square root. So I gotta do the square root to both sides to get rid of the square, and that leaves me with x equals the square root of 220, okay? And it's gonna give me 14 point, and it'll be 83 and some more numbers, but it tells us to round to the nearest tenth. So 83, when I round that to the nearest tenth, that's the first place after the decimal, that's just gonna stay the same because it's 4 or less. All right. All right. So I want you to pause it and see if you can do number 2 on your own. Okay. So we got a squared plus b squared equals c squared. All right. A and B. This again. A and B form the right angle. Okay. So that is 22 squared plus 18 squared equals equals x squared. So then I square both of them, all right? So 22 squared, that is gonna give me 484, plus 18 squared is gonna give me 324, and that equals x squared. Well, then I can go ahead and add these two. 484 plus 324 is gonna give me 808 equals x squared, okay? And then when I get here, right, this is equal x squared. To get rid of the squared, I gotta do the square root, okay? That's gonna get rid of the squared. So the square root of 808 is gonna give me 28.4 is 0.42, but again, I'm rounding to the nearest tenth, so I'm just gonna have one place after the decimal. All right? All right, got just a couple more. All right, so when we're testing for a right angle, we just know, right, again, a squared plus b squared has to equal c squared. So the two smaller numbers, right, 3, when I do 3 squared plus 4 squared equals, that has to equal 5 squared. So 3 squared is 9, 4 squared is 16, 5 squared is 25, right? And so if I add 9 plus 6, that gives me 25. So therefore, I know that that is a right angle. Okay. So again, I'm checking to see if the two smaller ones, when I square those, does it equal the larger one? Okay, so that's how we check that. So I want you to go ahead and see if you can do number 3 and number 4 on your own. Okay, again, you are checking to see, okay, does this squared plus that squared, does it equal 16 squared? Okay, so 9 squared plus 12 squared equals 16 squared. Let's see. Well, 9 squared is 81 plus 12 squared is 144. 16 squared is 256. Okay. And then when I add 81 plus 144, that gives me 225. So 225 is not equal to 256. So therefore, it is those dimensions do not form a right triangle. All right, and let's look at the next one. If you haven't done so, hey, pause it. Use the notes that we just took to see if you can do these on your own, or the next one on your own, number 4. All right, so we got 16 squared plus 30 squared equals 34 squared. Okay, so 16 squared gives me 256 plus 30 squared is 900 equals 1156. Well, then add 256 plus 900, that equals 1156. So 1156 is equal to 1156. Therefore, the dimensions are a right triangle, do form a right triangle. And then here's the last problem that we're going to cover in this review. All right, that's a word problem. All right, you have a 12-foot ladder that is leaned against the wall. If the base of the ladder is 6 feet from the wall, how high up? Okay, so again, for word problems, when you can, you want to draw a picture. Okay, so if I were you, I might want to highlight that. Okay, we want to draw a picture, all right, and label, okay, what the problem represents. I think that's a really good note. All right, so we're going to draw our picture. Well, we said there's a 12-foot ladder that's leaned up against the wall. So the ladder, that's the ladder, up against the wall. And then, so it tells us that the ladder is 12 feet. Okay, so 12 is how long the ladder is. And it's if the base of the ladder is 6 feet from the wall. Okay, so it's 6 feet away from, this is the wall, this is the bottom, and it's 6 feet away. I'm trying to figure out how high will it be on the wall. Okay, so this is my x. And now, once I've drawn my picture, now I can use Pythagorean theorem, right? Because I know this would, be a right triangle. So these two sides make my right triangle. So x squared plus 6 squared equals 12 squared, all right? And I want you to solve this on your own if you haven't already. All right, so we got x squared plus 36 equals 144, okay? Then we minus 36 on both sides. That cancels out. We got x squared equals 144 minus 36 is 108. And then to get rid of the square, we got to do the square root. Square root of 108, and that is going to give us 10.39, and we'll keep rounding it to the nearest tenth. Okay, so that would round this up to 10.4. All right, there you have it. All right, so in this lesson we reviewed angle relationships as well as the Pythagorean theorem.